Game week has finally arrived. It is Mercer week, folks, and that means just like last year, we're going to have another round of opening press conferences for the week with Coach Bryan Harsin. We're going to be breaking down what was said by him, what was asked by him in his responses, and our interpretation and speculation about all that was discussed leading up to the Auburn versus Mercer game. As always, I remind you, if you haven't, please do consider subscribing so you don't miss other content like this on E2C Network, because we got a lot coming out this year. So do that if you haven't done so. Let's jump right into this. So again, just as a reminder for these particular videos, how we're doing them this year, it's going to be me just kind of going off the cuff here, a long list of notes. I've tried to condense everything into a summary for you, roughly. Try to give you a little bit of speculation as well. I always stress, go check out the press conference for yourself. It's easy to find. It's on Auburn football social media accounts. It's open to everybody to go watch because you want to take these things in context. I'm giving you the summary and some of my interpretations and speculations on top of that. With that, let's dive right into it. And he opens up with his opening statement, as he typically does. There's been like one or two occasions where he hasn't had an opening statement. The big thing, obviously, TJ Finley was announced as starting quarterback. Did you hear that? We did a whole live stream about that. If you've missed that, please go back and check that out. It's a very popular video right now on the channel with a lot of interesting things transpiring through that live stream. Things got pretty, I won't call it heated, but lively discussions throughout the live stream, so don't miss out on those. Talking about how proud he is of TJ Finley, and I hope that the rest of you are as well. I'm very excited for his opportunities. The sad note that was also addressed by him, and this, I think a lot of us maybe felt like something was coming with this. Nick Brahms, done for the year, but also done for his entire football career. He just can't get around the injury bug, and it's just not healthy for him to do that anymore. So he will be a part of the team, helping the team where he can, but unfortunately Nick Brahms is done for the year, which is one knock against the offensive line that they're going to have to work through the rest of the year. Injury updates from now on are not going to be major for Coach Harsin, he said, unless it's something significant like a season-ending injury or something like that. He's not going to address that. He wanted the media members to know that. He did say that Zacchaeus Walker is having his knee looked at, which is why he is not part of the rotation and has not been considered to play in the Mercer game coming up. Talked a lot about the repetitiveness of fall camp and how great it is to be out. I know we all are happy as fans to be having them back out there, getting the normal preparations for a game week, and they're going to have a pad practice starting tomorrow. And finally, did say a little bit something about Mercer, noted their 63 points, 625 yards, I believe, on offense, and they had a kickoff return for a touchdown. They can score points all over the place. Don't take them lightly is what I hear from Coach Harsin. Let's jump into the questions that were asked. The first question was how they evaluate the quarterbacks, and said that this evaluation isn't done. This is game by game basis, not just for quarterbacks, but for everybody, and that everyone should be prepared to earn their job every single week. It's something that he stresses and something we talk a lot about here. Listen to what Coach Harsin says, because he's not a guy that gives you a lot of bull crap. He's a guy that gives you straight how it is, and what he says is what he means. Talked about how TJ earned the job. He will get the most reps and run with the blue team, essentially the ones. They asked about Zach Calzada and an update on what's going on with him. There wasn't a lot of detail given here. He did say they don't really want to go into specifics with coaching and just are continuing to stress him take the coaching and continue to work forward. Is it a matter of he just isn't cutting it in fall practice right now, or is he just still not there in terms of his progress he got behind on? Really don't know, but for now, it doesn't look like Zach Calzada is going to be part of that quarterback equation super significantly for now. Up next, talked about or asked about the accuracy assessment for TJ Finley, because it was very low last year by most standards. And Coach Harsin even said that what you look for is about 60% completion percentages up there. That's not great, but it's ideal in terms of kind of where you want to be sitting at the very, very least. And said that TJ has improved, didn't go into specifics how much, but he even went on to say that it's hard to assess that accurately during fall camp holistically, because you really want to take that in different sessions and assess that accuracy, because the defense is catching on because you're playing each other time and time again throughout 4 or 5 weeks of fall camp. They're going to catch on. But he says that he has improved. For those of you that are worried about that, I know that is a big concern. All right, up next, comparing improvements for players in preseason. And it was an interesting note, and I love this analogy that he talked about. talked about comparing Owen Papo and the progress he's made versus Tavares Dawson, and says Owen's kind of already at the peak of where he's going to be collegiately right now. Tavares Dawson is at the beginning stages. So trying to squeeze that little bit out of Owen is going to be super hard, very possible, and they're aiming to do that. But getting that big gap that's there probably for Tavares and where he can be is much easier because there's a wider gap. A lot of improvements have happened across the board is what he noticed. Everybody's making progress, and that they have the different levels that they're trying to assess for everybody right now. Did note, very interesting, freshmen, they want to utilize them. So for those of you that are excited about some of these new names that are going to be here, expect to see them in at least those 4 games because they want to get them out there and get the experience that they're afforded to at this point in collegiate football. What makes a great quarterback or what makes a quarterback effective? He talks a lot about toughness and not flinching in the pocket. Accuracy is important, but the intangible elements, your demeanor out there in the field is really what makes you a great quarterback. And personally, this is speculation on my part purely. When I hear Coach Harsin talk about this repeatedly, and I think about TJ, and even one of the knocks against him, that he was a statue in the pocket. Well, that kind of sounds like a guy that doesn't flinch a lot if you're a statue, right? We would all love him to move a little bit more last year. He's already shown in some practices that he can make those improvements. But that shows me a lot of the reason why he won this is a guy that seems, for the most part, unflappable in the pocket, even when he gets pressure. And he showed that in the Georgia State game last year. Made a play, even under duress, to sacrifice himself and win the game for us. So I think that's why you saw him win out in that in the race this particular fall practice. How did TJ find out? Didn't really elaborate on that. You could kind of hear the undertone there. Not very happy that that leaked out, and that he's obviously very happy for TJ right now, and that anybody who was watching practice could see that. Something we were talking a lot about here. Didn't take, a very good set of eyes to figure out who was in the lead and who was going to win that starting job. Let's talk about Alan Greene and what he said about that when asked, the relationship, how appreciative he's been of not just their time at Auburn together, but previously, and how that relationship has meant a whole lot to him for many, many reasons. What stuck out to him about Alan Greene was the process with which he was put through in the coaching search by Alan Greene and how detailed he was, the things that he asked, the things that he was looking for, vision, all that kind of stuff. So that should give you a lot of pleasant feelings about how that situation was handled by Alan Greene when we were searching for Bryan Harsin. And he also talked about loving being part of his bigger staff, all the head coaches, and being part of that group and working together with all of them under the leadership of Alan Greene. Next question was about Cameron Stutz and Keandre Jones being the or factor right there at right guard, meaning either one of them can play or start at this position. This is a really good thing for me. I'm really excited about this because that shows you how much that level of competition has stepped up, that you've got 2 guys in there, they can't even make a decision right now on who is going to be starting that game. Makes me feel really good about that right side of the offensive line alongside Austin Troxell and the makeup of just that area of the offensive line and what it's going to look like at this point. Talks about how Cam has really raised his level to be even, considered to be in an or situation alongside his peer in the depth chart, and also complimented a lot of the other offensive linemen throughout his discussion here. They did ask about Tate and his size and it being concerned there at center. He did say that obviously, he plays a lot bigger than his size shows, but for him, the center is more about the cerebral nature, the decisions that the center has to make, and that is what has made Tate step out of the competition and really earn that job. And there's going to be others that are going to be competing with him. He said Jaleel Irvin's helped him a lot in understanding that interior lineman situation because Irvin has a lot of, and Brahms too as well, even though he's not playing more, has helped him progress in that area. They asked about Robbie, where he's at right now in terms of his progress, his outlook in the depth chart. Talked a lot about how they're still going to be putting their focus on TJ right now. He's the guy, but they need Robbie to be ready to go. Because as we saw last year, it can happen in an instant. And Robbie, in 3 plays, I think Coach Harsin said, could be the guy if something drastic happens where they have to make a change, either by choice or otherwise. Robbie has to be ready to take on that next role. And I think that he is going to be able to do that. And also said that Holden has really discovered what the expectations are for him and has really kind of made that progress during the fall. So another encouraging sign, especially with a lot of uncertainty about Zach Calzada. New faces on the defensive line and the nature with which it looks like within the depth chart. Talked about this was the area of concern that they had in the offseason, and they went out and got their guys and got their depth, and that's the reason why they're all in the depth chart right now. Go really look at that if you haven't, because it's really interesting to see some faces we'll talk about in just a second. Jason Jones, Morris Joseph, Marcus Bragg being part of that 2 deep. And I think we're going to be very happy with some of the guys that show up there. He was asked, should we expect a focus on the run game? It was a lot of coach speak in this, so there's not really anything significant. They said they would like to be balanced in their attack, but I bet they're going to be putting some focus on Tank Bigsby, Jarquez Hunter, and Damari Alston and getting that run game going, especially in these first 2 games. Asked about Jason Jones, thoughts on him being the number 1 guy at nose tackle there, and they brought him over for a reason, is what coach said. Very intelligent. You obviously can see his size. This is why he won. And what he loves about Jason is how he has raised the level of competition and, overall progress for Marquise Burks and what that's going to do for the depth situation. Even though he's 1 out over him, Burks has already raised his level to try and meet that, and that's going to be a really good thing for the team overall. Last couple of questions. Development of the wide receiver room. What's the biggest thing that sticks out? Obviously the depth and how the competition is raised because of that, but the speed. That's interesting. Came from a speed-based offensive system before him. Speed's raised up a little. Pretty interesting. Not shocked, but I think that just comes with time and everybody kind of getting up to the speed of where Coach Harsin wants them to be. Lastly, special teams thoughts. Anders seems to be good to go, even for kickoffs, that he can do that as long as he chooses to do so. So it doesn't seem to be too many injury concerns there. Evan McPherson looks good to go, along with Evan McGuire, should anything like that have to take place if he's not ready to do on kickoffs. And you're going to see a lot of young players on these special teams guys because they're really making headway with a lot of the drills, the techniques, the coaching that takes place in these special teams. A lot of guys are really latching on to finding their footing on this team as part of special teams. I think special teams, the way it sounds, is going to be a really special thing this year for the Auburn Tigers. So that is the press conference summary I have for you. A lot to take in there. Sometimes it'll be very brief and sometimes it'll be very long like this. Love to hear from you. What do you think about, obviously, the depth chart, but some of the things that were discussed in this press conference and how we summarized them here? Let me know down there in the comments section below. But before you head out, if you haven't smashed the like button, if you enjoy this type of content, please do subscribe if you haven't as well so you don't miss any live streams or uploads here. Check out the links in the description for ways you can help support our content, such as being a channel member here by hitting that join button or heading over to patreon.com/E2C Network to join the Booster Club. Thank you for tuning in here today, and we appreciate you tuning into the E2C Network where we cover the whole of the Auburn experience. War Eagle.